Welcome to the project management demo of the 3DX series. This is the fourth demo in the series. By this stage, I'm assuming that you have watched the previous three. Points that were raised and detailed in previous demos may not be explained again for the sake of keeping a long demo as short as possible. There are 4 stages in this demo. Creating programs, projects, schedules, and experiments is orientated around the planning and tender phase of a project, whereas baselines, project progress, and resources are orientated around the execution phase. Here is a general list of terminology for this demo. Please take note of the difference between program and project. The program is used to group similar projects together, sticking with our car chassis idea. Projects for the chassis of the Hyundai i20, i10, and i30 would all fall under the program of the Hyundai i-series cars. Each is a different project, but may share many similarities and so can be grouped together under a single program. Schedules are a hierarchy of tasks to be completed for a project. The schedule is the core item of this demo. In the previous demos, we have captured the requirements of the project, and the focus is now on the planning, task creation, and scheduling of the project. The following diagram will explain the hierarchical structure of the program, project, and schedule. To build this, we start at the highest level of program and work our way down through projects, schedule, phases and phase gates, tasks, and lastly, deliverables. We start at the top with the overarching program containing several different projects. Each of these projects has its own schedule, detailing all the phases and tasks necessary to complete the project. This is further broken down into a series of phases and gates. Phases do not have to be sequential, and more than one phase can be in work at once. For the moment, we're going to avoid using gates in our project. The reason being that this is a fairly intricate aspect with significant knock-on effects on the project if used incorrectly. Rejecting a gate will entirely and irreversibly cancel the whole project, so until we have a good understanding of the 3D Experience platform, we will steer clear of this potential trap. Each phase is a logical grouping of related tasks that must be completed to complete the phase. In this case, tasks 1 through 5 make up the first phase of the project, say preliminary design phase. Once all the tasks in phase 1 are complete and accepted, phase 1 ends and we move on to phase 2. This may now be detailed design. Lastly, some of the tasks will be to produce the final deliverables of the project and will be known objectives from the beginning of the project, so these can be linked to the respective tasks from the onset. To build this schedule, and staying with our example from the automotive industry, we will start with the program, a Hyundai i-series chassis. The project would be the i20 chassis. Phases could be preliminary design, detailed design, and final review. Tasks could be chassis modeling, FEA analysis, and so on. Deliverables could be the car chassis detailed drawings. Now that we have a good idea of the structure, let's get to the process used for creating our project schedule. Programs serve to group similar projects together. Typically, you will not need to create a new program each time. Rather, create a few standard programs that cover the company's typical projects. Then, once these standard programs are in place, start at step 2 for a new project and assign the project to an existing program. A company will usually stick to a certain area of expertise, and so many, if not most of its projects will be very similar. The project template and copy options speed this process up substantially, as the steps from creating the project to dependencies are done automatically. We will create a template later, but for the demo we will do this all from scratch. Furthermore, modifying the project after using the template must still follow the same process. Members can be assigned individually to a project or by assigning a member list or role. Member lists are useful in larger companies as entire departments can be selected in one action. You must also define the role each member or group will play in the project, as this may later restrict accesses and rights. These roles in the project can be edited to suit the company's stated roles. Next up is creating the tasks necessary for the project. The start dates for most tasks will be decided by the dependencies defined later on, and so the constraint type can be left as ASAP for most tasks. Therefore, 3DX will set the task start date to today and this will be changed later on. Only tasks that have a defined start date, say the first task in the project, or a set window for completion, need to have their starting dates defined in this step. At this stage, we have a list of tasks, but most, if not all, have been set to the default start date of today. There are two basic ways to create dependencies. The first is via the Gantt chart tab and dragging and dropping the task endpoints to create a default finish A to start B dependency. If this needs to be changed, then double-click on the dependency line. The second is a slower method using the dependencies button, but can be easier to manage for very large projects when inserting only a few tasks. So let's now move on to 3D Experience and do these steps.
The project management app is found in the north sector of our compass, and much like requirements, I have already defined it as a favorite app, and so it is always visible. The first step in our process is to create a program, so we go to Program section at the side and select Programs. Then click Create New. We would then insert the necessary name and description for our new program, but in most cases, this will not be necessary as we would already have a program applicable to our new project. We will instead use the demo program that I created earlier. To create a project, we now enter the specific program we are interested in. We then select Projects on the left-hand side, go to the Action button, Create Project, and in this case, we'll start from scratch by creating a new project. The Create a New Project window now appears on the right, and we input the necessary information such as names, descriptions, etc. And then say OK to create. The 3D Experience will then automatically open the new project and display the home page as shown. There is nothing yet defined in this project, and so no summary information to be displayed. The third step in the process is now to assign members. So we go over to People on the left-hand side category. Please note that having created the project, I am automatically assigned as the first member. I add more members by going to the Action button and saying Add Member or User Groups. In this case, we'll add more members. 3D Experience will then provide me with a list of people or groups that can be assigned to the project. Along with myself, we will assign 3 others to this project. And select OK. With our members assigned, we will now go to the Schedule category to start defining the tasks. By default, this page will show the overarching demo chassis project, which we select in order to start creating tasks. As mentioned before, we start at the top of the hierarchy and move our way down. We've created the program, the project, the schedule, and now we start with the phases. So rather than creating a task to start, we'll change this to a phase. Next, we input the name and description. The next option down is Insert, giving us options of above or sub-level. This refers to what item we selected when we clicked on the Create Task button. In this case, we selected the Demo Chassis 1 project, and so the phases must be sub-levels of the project. The next option is the duration. This applies more to tasks than phases because the phase is built up of several tasks. The duration of each task will be summed, and that will define the total duration for the overarching phase. Task requirements should be set to mandatory. Constraint type refers to the timing of the phase or task that we are trying to create. Its typical option is as soon as possible, but has multiple other options depending on the situation. In this case, we will stick with leaving it as soon as possible. The remaining sections we can leave clear for the moment. We now click OK to finish creation of the phase. Our newly created phase now appears as a child of the Demo Chassis 1 project. Using the same process, I've added 3 additional phases, these being chassis detail design, engine design, and final project review. After this, we now move on to creating the actual tasks. We want these to be created as children of the respective phase rather than the overarching project. So rather than choosing the Demo Chassis 1, we select the respective phase and then say Create. The same window now appears and we select the type as Task. Continue to input information as we did with the phase, such as name and description. Our first task will be a review of previous projects. We will change this one's duration from 1 day to 3. As this is the first task in our project, this will define the starting date of the project. So you must change the constraint type from as soon as possible to must start on. We then select the applicable date. We'll change this from January to February and start on the 10th. And click OK. This new task now appears as a child of the preliminary design phase. 3D Experience has also updated the preliminary design phase's information to coincide with that of the task, in that the duration is now 3 days, its starting date is now the 10th rather than 21st of Jan, and its end date is the 12th of Feb. We will continue adding in tasks by going back to Create. So, I've now skipped over the repetitive stage of creating all these different tasks and fleshed out our project. Under preliminary design phase, we now have review of previous projects, a prelim chassis design, and a prelim renders. The detailed design phase now includes tasks such as chassis load case definition, FEAs, renders, and manufacturing. The engine design phase I've left as a single task, being engine specification. And the final project review phase now includes post-project review and handover and document archiving. All of these tasks were created with the scheduling constraint of as soon as possible, and therefore their current start dates are defined as the 21st of Jan for all of them. This is obviously unrealistic, and we will fix this by including the dependencies for the tasks. The first way of doing this is by selecting the second task of the dependency, say prelim chassis design, as this has to be done after the review of previous projects. We then click on the Create Dependencies button and select the related dependency from the lower channel, in this case, review of previous projects. We set the dependency type to finish to start and say add. The new dependency now appears in the upper channel. We can close this window. Dependencies can be viewed graphically from the Gantt chart tab, and our newly created dependency has moved the prelim chassis design to start after review of previous projects. This is the slower of the two dependency methods, but it's still useful later on once the project has been started and we need to modify dependencies. At the early and planning stages of the project, the simpler approach for dependencies is dragging and dropping. We do this by mousing over the first task and dragging the ending circle to the start of the second task. Now simply rinse and repeat for the remaining tasks. Using this drag and drop method, I've now created all the additional dependencies throughout this project. Our Gantt chart now shows that we will start with the review of previous projects. After this, we can move to a preliminary chassis design, and then onto preliminary chassis renders, load cases, modeling, and a steering system. Please note that 3D Experience does not save these dependencies immediately, and so we must click the Save button. On a side note, a very useful feature of the 3D Experience is the critical path button, as this will highlight all of the tasks on the critical path for this project. And with that, we have now finished the first 5 steps of creating our schedule. We will now go back to the actual presentation to define the last view.
Certain tasks throughout the project will produce documents, drawings, reports, or similar items that are defined as deliverables for the project. These items are known to be needed at the very beginning of the project, and so should be attached to their respective tasks at the onset. Assigning members to specific tasks is best done from the Structured View tab, Assignment View. This can be done from the Task Details. Once members are assigned to the task, they need to allocate their time to each task. This is done from the Allocation view. The allocation is the percentage of each member's day that they will spend on the task, not what percentage of the task they will complete. This will come up later in the demo under Resource Utilization section. The project is still in the preliminary stage, and so must be promoted to the ready state. At this point, email notification will be sent to all members, informing them of their assigned tasks, and tasks will appear on their project execution page. The bookmark structure that will be covered in the Collaboration and Approvals app should be set up at this point. This will allow members to give feedback about the project schedule and any potential issues using the Collaboration and Approvals discussions, issues, and meetings functionality. When the project is started, use the same process to promote it to the in-work stage. We will now demonstrate these last few steps.
Tasks such as the part and assembly detail drawings revolve around the production of deliverables for the overall project. We define these deliverables in 3DX by first opening the task. We then go to the deliverables category, select the action button and say create new document. The document item, much like the models we dealt with in traceable requirements, is not an actual document but a container for such items. We define the name and description of the 3DX document item, and later on in our process, we will then attach the respective drawings to this item. Then click Next. If we already have files we can insert, we can do it here, or simply click Done. Returning to our structured view, we now have to assign members to tasks, which we do by going to the View icon and clicking Assignment View. From here, we mark each member to their necessary task. And now once assigned, the allocation view is opened, and we now define what percentage of each person's day they will spend on each task. For the moment, we'll leave this at 100% for all members. This will create overloading issues later on, but we will pick this up again in the resource management section. Having completed the early planning stages of our project, the final step is to move this project to the ready state. This can be done from this icon here, or by going to the details. Once in details, we can go to Lifecycle and click on the Promote button. Keeping in mind, the promotion of the schedule does not necessarily promote the individual tasks inside of it. We go back to the Schedule view and now promote the first several tasks. When these tasks are moved to the ready state, the members assigned to them will receive a notification of the promotion. And with that, we finish the final step of scheduling. Our final note for this video will be to deal with project templates. Going back to the start of this video, when we were going to create a project, we went to the Program and then Project section. To create a project template, we now go to Project Templates over here instead. We then create the project template in exactly the same way as we created the project earlier. Go to Create New Project Template and work from there. To then create a new project from the template, as before, we go to our Project section. Earlier on, we went to the Action button and clicked on Create Project and selected Create New. This time we will instead select from Template. We then go over here and select which template we would like to use.
So, we have now created the project, assigned members to their tasks, and promoted the project to the ready phase. For future reference, now would be a good time to set up the bookmarks if you have not already. We now turn our focus to editing the project. Fairly often in a project tender, you will find that the first revision of the project schedule does not meet the client's requirements for start and finish dates. Members may be either over or underburdened, and the project may be missing tasks. The project manager then needs to modify the schedule to account for these issues before starting the project. Furthermore, projects rarely go exactly to plan. Unexpected events can cause delays or rework that will require corrective action to resolve. This can be done by shortening the task duration estimates, creating additional tasks, delaying tasks to accommodate the limited resources, fixing incorrect dependencies, or accelerating tasks. All of these actions will have an effect on the overall schedule, but the project manager has no way to predict the cumulative effect of all these changes on the schedule, or whether or not the corrective action will indeed resolve a time-based issue. 3D Experience has brought in a new system for exactly this problem, in the form of experiments. This is a duplicate of the schedule that can be modified with the proposed solutions to determine their overall effect, without editing the actual project schedule until a suitable solution is found. This process will be covered in more detail in the next demo.